Today we're making two-sided mushrooms with our Toadstool mold from IOD. Hi, this is Myra with Boutique Paint. We are starting out with a solid piece, and what I mean by solid is I didn't take two pieces and push them together, and I don't want to do that. I want one full piece of clay, and I've already dusted it with the cornstarch, and you just toss it in there. And the reason why you don't want to use like two pieces of clay to do this, like some of the bigger ones, you know, you could just keep adding the clay to it. We're not doing that with this one, because if you do that and there's like a line right here, it weakens the mushroom. And we don't want a weak mushroom. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the mushroom one half, and I'm going to just leave it in there, and then I'm going to take my glue, and I've already made my secondary one, so I'm making two of the same, and these do not have mirror images on it. So how am I going to do this with no mirror image? Well, because that's why we're doing it in the clay, so we can kind of mold it together. So I'm just going to put a little bit of clay, excuse me, a little bit of glue onto my clay, and then we're going to set our first little guy on top of the second one, and you can see they don't line up. So we're just going to kind of get that to squish together, and then we'll pull it out, and then there's seams. We're just going to kind of, and you can take a little bit of water on your finger, and you can just kind of smooth the seams together. And any place that it kind of sticks out a little bit more, like right here, you can see it, just squish them together. If you just rub your finger kind of over the seam with a little bit of water, it'll help put those seams together. It is so warm in my shed right now that this clay literally is drying on me. I mean, literally, it's not cooperating. I did my sample just a little bit ago, and I didn't have any problem, and now it's, yeah, I can just feel it hardening up already. All right, so I'm going to want my little end to be flat. This isn't hugely important. If you skip this step, that's okay. I gotta find my little cutter though. I'll use this. I'm just going to make this a little flat. And I'm going to throw that away because that probably has a little bit of glue on it, and I don't want to throw it back in my bag. Now you could wait and let this dry, but first we're going to stick a toothpick into the center of this, and this is to give it stability so that it doesn't want to bend and break. I'm going to stick it in there as far as I possibly can without going through the top. Like I said, see, it's drying already. Let's see if I can smooth that out a little bit. And if it happens to split a little bit after it is dried, then you can put a little bit of the clay into the crease. There we go. Now it's starting to wash away some of that. So that's that part of it. So now I want to put this on a little base, and I want to paint it. So I'm going to actually take the one I made a little bit ago, because you can actually see it changing colors already, that it's drying that fast. So I have my kissing booth. I'm gonna paint. Oop. It's a brand new paintbrush, and so it's very stiff. I'm just gonna paint the top. And I picked this color because this is like the classic mushroom color. You could do this also in really natural colors like browns and taupes and whatnot too. So I used a low setting on the hairdryer just to dry the paint. And I'm going to take a little bit of the DIY's White Swan. And on the mold itself, you can see that there's these little spots. Well, we kind of lost some of the ability to see them or feel them on this mold by kind of molding it together. So I can see a couple. And I'm just going to dot it. My hands are shaky. And I'm just using the very, very tip of my paintbrush. And just kind of randomly putting the white on it. And it doesn't have to be perfect because nature's not perfect. But if you're needing to have them exact, what you could do is you could take like the end of a Q-tip. Let me see if I got one here. I can show you with that. Or like a fatter toothpick. I think the toothpicks like this aren't going to work. I thought maybe I'd have a Q-tip in here, but I don't. Oh, I know what tool I can use to show you. This is something I picked up at the dollar store. And I know I have another one sitting around, but I don't see it right now. So I'll pull out this one. It's a brand new one. This is from the dollar store. And what are they? They're craft tools, but they're for, it says embossing stylus. So you would run this around whatever you're embossing. But it also has two size tips on it. So let's give that a try. I'm going to start with the bigger one. That works pretty darn good. But what I was saying about the Q-tip, take the cotton off of it, and then you can just use the end of it for dotting. That looks a little too arranged. There we go. So now I'm going to take a little bit of DIY's Prairie Gray to paint the stem, and I'm just going to leave it right there on the paper. Now the texture, you can see the texture of the stem from the mold is still there. We'll see how it does since it is just a smidge still wet. The clay is still wet. Whenever you paint the clay, when it's wet, you have a tendency to lose some of the detail. So while this is still wet, I'm thinking I might want to put a little bit of white on there. Now, if you were to do this when it was dry, you could probably paint it and maybe wipe it back a little bit. But since I'm not waiting for it to dry, I'm going to go ahead. I think I want just a little bit of lines going through it, like it shows in the mold itself. So I'm going to just take a little bit of the white while this is still wet. Hopefully it's still wet. We'll see here because of the temperature. And I wiped some of it off, and I'm just going to and then change direction so that you're getting it from everywhere. There we go. Now, say that that doesn't look quite the way you want to. You can take a little bit of your brown paint and just kind of swift across it, and it'll help to pull some of that white and make it look a little less painted on. So our next step is to put this on a base. And so I went out into my yard, and I happened to have some old fence boards. And so I grabbed a piece and I went and I cut it. And the nice thing about it, just kind of split naturally there, which kind of left a cool effect. This looks like it was either a woodpecker or some sort of something maybe climbing up, because it was leaning up against one of our buildings. That sounds horrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole into the board, and I want it about the size of the toothpick. And so I just kind of eyeball by putting the drill bit on top of the toothpick and seeing if I can see the toothpick on either side. And it was really close. So we're gonna put this into the drill, and I'm just going to, now you could put on a board this size, you could put like 3 of them on there. That would be super cute. I'm gonna just drill. And then our toothpick is too long. So you can see that it's, and we're not even going to go all the way through. So I'm going to just eyeball it, and then I'm going to take a pair of wire cutters and kind of snip that and hope we're the right length, and hope that that will go into that hole. It looks like it's a little bit small of a hole. Nope, it's perfect. Okay. Now that I know it fits, also, I'm going to do just a little dab of glue so that if it gets jostled around, it won't just pop up. So I'm going to put a little bit down that hole and a little bit just to the sides so it'll hit the clay, the glue, the clay, the something. The heat's not getting to me at all. There we go. I know most of the country's been under extreme heat this summer. We just had ours, a week of over 100, and smoke from the fires to the east of us. Lots and lots of smoke. And you gotta feel for those people in Hawaii. So I know that the dollar store sells different mosses, so do the craft stores, and I have some somewhere. Do you think I could find it? No, story of my life. I can't ever find anything I want when I want it, but that's just me. So I found these sticks out in my yard with some moss on it, so I'm just going to put a little bit of dabs of glue. Around here, and then I'm just going to pull some of this moss off this stick and set it in it. I'm probably going to need a little bit more glue than that. You could also do this with hot glue. it would definitely stick faster. And I may turn on my glue gun just to get it going so I could do the other one that way. And just push it down in there. Now you could use anything as far as wood. If you don't happen to have fence boards out in your backyard, those little rounds, wood round branches that they sell at craft stores also would work real well. If you want to cover it completely with moss, then it probably wouldn't matter what you put it on, just as long as you got enough thickness to get the toothpick in there a little bit so that it will stick nicely. But that's pretty cute. There's also this moss which grows on trees, and I just learned about this moss the other day. I did a class with the Oregon State Extension, and they were telling us that this moss has got a lot of good properties to it that you can use for different healing and stuff like that. It's kind of fascinating. You just never know what you find out in nature, right? So I pushed that through first, and then where this one I just kind of glued it around it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue for this one. And then we'll push it through. And remember to be careful, because when you're pushing it in, you don't want the toothpick coming out the top like that one did. I didn't have any problem with that one. So there we are. Super, super sweet little mushrooms, two-sided. If you have any questions about any of the products that I used, you can go to our website at www.boutiquepaint.com, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye.